First of all, I welcome Dr. Aloknath for this, who has agreed to give this first ECE75 webinar series talk. And I also thank Dabdeep for coordinating it. And I think this session, Dr. Ganeshan Tyagarajan will be anchoring this session, right? Ganesh, can you please take over and then?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thank you, Professor Vinay. Welcome everyone for the ECE75 webinar, and we are happy to jointly organize it along with IEEE ComSoc Bangalore. And it gives me pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Aloknath. Dr. Aloknath is a Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of Samsung R&D India, Bangalore. He has over 30 years of industrial and research experience at BEL, Nortel, Hughes and ST-Ericsson, where he was country director. During 2005 to 2011, he has served as a visiting adjunct faculty with IIT-Roorkee and IIT-Delhi. He holds a B.Tech from IIT Kharagpur, ME from IISc Bangalore, and a Ph.D. from McGill University, Montreal. Dr. Day is a recipient of Alexander Graham Bell Prize and IETE Memorial Awards, IDC Insight Award for Innovation in Telecom, Zinnov Award as Entrepreneurship of the Year, and Intrapreneurship of the Year, and Assocham Award for Corporate Tech Leadership. He is considered as one of the most influential CIO CTO of India. He is a senior member of IEEE and fellow of IE and IETE and Indian National Academy of Engineering. Dr. Alok promotes science and technology linkage and is actively involved in patenting intellectual property, culminating in innovative products. He has been spearheading Samsung's investment in Indian startups through Samsung Venture. His main research interests and patents are in the intersection space of AI, IoT, and big data. All yours, Dr. Alok.
Thank you, Ghana, for introducing. It is always a pleasure to work with you in IEEE and also here. So it's very fascinating. And Professor Vinay, we were there in the IISc's the launch event that day on the panel discussions together. So ECE's 75th year. So again, it's a good memory that we all have, and we want Institute to prosper and you to drive more on the ECE. So that's great. So that's why when the opportunity came, and it's always a pleasure to share some of the things that we are doing with the budding engineers, entrepreneurs, and all the people around. So today's topic is corporate and startup, a symbiotic relationship. Now, this is a topic it's hard to capture in slide deck point by point. So I will more verbalize the key essence of this relationship. However, just to get going on few things that what we do in Samsung, and I'm taking Samsung as an example. I think if it's Intel or TI or Qualcomm, I'm sure they would have similar, their center of excellence would change. So just to be much more specific, I will take some examples from our organizations. But as I said, you can just replace them with whoever you would be working. The key point is to get why corporates would need the startup and why startups would also need. And there was a time where startups could come on their own, and there is this estrangement that corporates are corporates and they are big giants and they are slow and whatever it is, less innovative, and you have to go to startups to do it. I'm sure, startups as they mature, I mean, today's corporates are yesterday's startups, right? Someday they had to start something and then they have grown. And obviously, if they have done it right, then they have got certain things right, whether it is that experience, whether it is other solutions, products, that has seasoned up. And that cannot be a no. Definitely there is a value to that. At the same time, as we do things, it gets stale or you become less challenging and status quo. If some corporates go through that, that's a place that startup bringing all the enthusiasm and agility to work. So that's the backdrop in which I wanted to talk. And today, Samsung, just for everybody's benefit to explain that we are two primary R&D center in India, one based out of Noida and one in Bangalore. Noida is supporting a lot of India-related products, and when the solution gets matured, how do you take it to multiple models, work with the ecosystem that they have been doing fantastic job in TV side. There is a stream on the digital appliances, but also on the mobile side of it. Bangalore Center also connects to this, like 5G in India. If it is coming, then definitely Bangalore is playing a role, certain AI, IoT, but also it has a much more global contributions, tech leaderships to take it. So two together, we do a good job for corporate, which is headquartered in Samsung Electronics in Seoul. Suwon is the area, which is the digital city. We also have our Southwest Asian, we have 10 regions. The Gurgaon is the headquarter for the Southwest Asian region, the SAARC countries mostly, minus few here and there, plus few, but that's the base. And similarly, we have in Europe and North America and South America and other places. So that's the corporate part of it. And then we have two manufacturing units, one based out of Chennai, where we are doing all the digital appliances, the white goods, and Noida, Greater Noida, Dadri area, where we have world's largest mobile manufacturing plant that we used to do about 64 million phones per year manufacturing from here. But by next year, it's got little delayed due to pandemic, but by next year, we'll be doing closer to 100 million phones per year, and not just catering to India needs, but also exporting quite a lot. And we are a proud partner of this Make for India and PLI schemes in the mobile and peripheral things of display and battery, all of this that we are doing. So we are here for last 25 years. This is a celebrations of our 25th year in India, and we are playing a quite critical roles in the whole journey. We're one of the largest patent filer grantor in India. The way Samsung is known in the world for within the top 2 in the patent filing, it's the same way I think we are also in the top 1, 2, 3, whatever, from time to time. But definitely per capita intellectual property would be one of the largest, if not the largest. So that's a backdrop of the corporate, because today we're talking about this. And now I'll take you through some of the platforms that we build very briefly. Again, it's an ECE department and people would love to know some of these technologies. So I'll take it because they are very much linked why startups should come. So I'll give few examples, few sentences on that. But before I go there on the specific 4 platforms, I would like to just define my way of the enterprises. Okay, so business versus social enterprises, I called it, but this is just one way, and this is my model, who-when model of enterprises. That's what I defined. The one way to look into startup versus the big companies, but the way I look at any product or solution that we build, will all people will use all the time? Or will some people use all the time? Or all people sometime, or some people sometime? This is my model that I use. And obviously from the left top corner is the business enterprise, because as an enterprise, when I'm profit making, I would love to have almost all the people using almost all the time, right? When I say all the time, it means majorly, right? If it's a stethoscope.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Alok. I think we cannot, I could not see the change in the slide. Like, did you change?
Yes, I changed.
Okay, so can others see? I mean, Dr. Dana or Professor Vinay, you can see that.
No, we are all in the first slide only.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Maybe can you please unshare and share one more time?
Okay, sorry about that because I thought.
Or Dr. Alok, I can request control to you, and then if you permit me, I can try changing slides. Let's try that, whether that works.
So what should I do?
Yeah, just say accept my control.
Stop presenting. Okay.
No, don't.
Allow. Okay.
That.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now let me try to change the slides.
Please do that. Okay. Thank you.
Now it is changing.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yes.
So
great.
let's go back. Thank you.
Which slide you want me to be? You just prompt me. I'll change the slides.
Number 2. Go back. Yes. So okay. Thank you. So so what I was saying is that all people all the time, some people all the time. So if you are talking about stethoscope, then it's doctors using almost all the time, right? Or if it's a toothbrush, we all use, but only in the morning, 5 minutes, that's it, right? Or some people sometime, if you have this whole asthmatic patients and you don't need the puff all the time, and not all the peoples need it, but it is there. So the social enterprise comes from bottom right corner and the business enterprise comes from the top. That's the model. And all the enterprises would fall into somewhere for their products and solutions. So if you go to the next slide, then I wanted to explain a few things, which is, I just take the 5G as a next example and the train examples that we have, number 3 slide. So when I look into, when I look into this, so as our SRIB center, we are looking into 4 different segments as center of excellence. So I just wanted to take these few platforms because I think one of the reasons why startups come to the big corporates, because they have been able to build solid platforms. And these platforms, you go to Google or Microsoft or Samsung, you would get few of these bigger platforms where it is easier to plug in your own specific solutions and bring an additional value. So when you look into this, for example, this was my first assignment on 5G on the base station side or on the user equipment terminal side. We do on both sides. And we build solutions along with service operators and others, right? But as you see, suppose I take an example for passengers or for train operators, there are many values like internet on board or passenger assistance and informations or some entertainment in the rail, the security that is there, the train control, crew assistance. Now, these kinds of services could be provided by startups. This is not the only thing. They can also build a lot of core technology, but let me just take here for that. And when we partnered, we have investment. I also have a Samsung venture investment fund, and we are investing into Indian startups, done dozen plus in various ways. And one of these companies, for example, Rail Yatri, they do that buses as well as trains and optimize the routes, giving you the information, the ticketing part of it. Now, if I'm building an 5G or an LTE based, the rail, LTE train specific services, LTR, then we would like an operator as a partner. We would be there and these companies could bring good solutions. When we have our Samsung Pay as a solutions, but can I bring it when the Rail Yatri is ticketing? Could that be used there? So it is both ways. It is a platform in which they are joining, but it's also while they are joining and providing that service, we are also being able to enable them with our another solutions. There are different ways of paying for the ticket or for other services, catering services and things like that, but they could give that as an option. So it's a very nice circle that they got a place And we also have a certain solutions that we could manifest through them because they have millions and millions of customers that are there and they could do that. And now we have the phones. So therefore, if they are reaching, and today it is all web-based, I could take that onto the mobile-based platforms, and possibly people using Samsung phones would be having an added advantage if I could integrate all of this. So this is one strong way that we could do that. If you go to the next slide, I take another such examples on the multimedia and immersive services. And there, again, are you able to take me to the next slide?
You want me to go to the next, after that? I'm slide 4 now.
Yes, okay, that's fine. Yeah, it's taking some delay, I think. So anyway, so the multimedia and the immersive services. So here, you know, again, it's very interesting to see how the camera is proliferating. And, you know, earlier we used to talk about, if you think of, and some of you are, if not my age, but little lesser, but not so young, you know, you would remember that we used to talk about 2 megapixel camera versus 3 megapixel versus 5. And that was the competitions, right, in that range. And today that megapixels, we don't know what is the level. And we just recently even talked about from India, 180 megapixels camera sensors that we built as a solutions. And globally, even Samsung has announced even higher flagships. So it's not just the megapixels part of it, but also how many cameras. You know, at the peak time, we have built with 4 cameras. I think people have settled with 2 or 3 now, not 1, maybe not 4. We tried with that, but I think it's between 2 or 3 phones that works well. And so ability to see, it becomes a stereo kind of visions when you have these 2 cameras and placed right. And therefore, lots of problems that could be solved. And obviously, we started with the 2-dimensional problems of your object detections to classifications and typical computer visions. And this whole solutions is built from my lab here that is part of the global solutions, which is, you know, coming from object detections to classification, semantically understanding, and we have built the full stock and stack for the flagship products. But when you go there, you know, you start with single camera, double camera, and then different kinds of mode. But we also work with many startups coming to that because there are many kind of processing that is important and many modes that people look for, right? And night visions, there could be a certain skills that is required, or, you know, all kinds of mode. When we built, we have worked with many partners on burst shot or, you know, panoramic view and things like that. So from that world, today we are moving to 3D's world and AR, XR, like an MR, kind of models that are coming. And so we have built a lot of labs and people are participating in the AR solutions. As you see in the market, you know, certain kind of eyeglasses and things like that that are emerging.
Hello.
So obviously, the whole process of the solutions would be very, very different in that sense, right? So in this diagram that I showed here is kind of real-time interactive games to iris detections to glasses that uses camera. So all of these are kind of present. Also, the other thing is streaming. So this is where OTT and streaming, there is a lot of opportunity to work with the startups, and there are short format videos. You know, many companies that are there. We recently have been investing and working with Trell as a company, startups. We have announced that. And it's short format video when the C brands could not be surviving here and the changeover came. Some of these Indian companies have built fabulous solutions and they are empowering our youth with those kinds of solutions. So that's another platform that I talked. And if you go to the next slide, the number 5, this is where I talk about the voice solution, the Bixby. And you already know about Google Assistant or, Alexa's, but we also have Bixby from Samsung for device control when you have an IoT kind of scenarios. So Bixby talks. And we built the ASR engine, right? And the NLU to build this whole voice assistant, which can be powering either through the speakers or the TVs, or even now our fridge has Bixby, some of the smart fridges which are acting as hub in the kitchen that is doing. So Bixby talks, Bixby minds, Bixby can even sees. That is a kind of vision that we built, but voice assistant is a vital thing. Now coming to again startup engagement. Now initially we built this for English and few languages globally, about 8-10 languages. But then we also felt that you have to have named entities and Indian names or Indian places name. That's very vital. So our team in SRIB has been quite prolific to modify, train from British English or the US English to Indian English with a lot of modifications, and adoptions has suddenly increased. Now, as adoption increases, then you talk about how do you take it to other Indian languages. Now, this is where I wanted to highlight that I have defined, and we as an organization are very committed to decide on make versus buy kind of things very clearly. What do we make inside, why we make, and what should we partner with someone? And this is where, we have been working one of the prominent companies, Gyani.ai, for example. They are building this multilingual solutions in Indian context. And if we have not even gone into that, but I'm just saying, whenever we decide to take it to other languages, companies like this are very powerful. And I don't need to build all of those other languages inside the country. At the same time, we can bring it to masses. So one of the reasons why startups would be meaningful to us, and I could help them to get to their solutions taking to business, is whereby they're able to expand these solutions. We are all on the same platform, but I'm still not doing what they're doing, what they're good at. And therefore, let's join hands and get to that solution. So this is one example I wanted to give. And the fourth platform, which is in the next slide, if you go in the IoT. And I'm taking these 4 because these 4 we have been talking about center of excellence, the advanced communication going from 2G to 5G, the camera and multimedia, the AI as AI, and I took example here of the voice part, but then you also have the story of your, text intelligence or data intelligence or vision intelligence, all could be applied. So here I'm on the 4th platform to talk about smart home. And again, I'll not get into details, but we have a smart things platform that connects lots of devices. About 180 million devices that we have connected over last 6-7 years in different homes all over the world. And I personally am very passionate about this and contribute. And now we are bringing AI into the IoT. But again, coming to our today's topic is more about when you do that. For example, I'll give 2 examples. This solution can be adopted in smart home and building. Now, when I build this smart things as smart building, what can happen is next to my building, let's say prestige building, there is a smart parking lot, right? So the smart parking lot would be managed by another operator, another startup, who might be managing that parking space. And there are companies coming in India who are get me the parking and things like that on demand basis in the crowded places or managing that parking. Now, if these 2 are next to each other, we have defined how two clouds can talk to each other and then get the solutions into that specifics. But today's context, what I wanted to highlight is that that can be a partner and startups with whom I have an interest if it's an interesting parking related solutions or something else of that nature. But we also have been working with some of these other new product developers, because Samsung is into the digital appliances, let's say refrigerator and the air conditioner and washer and robo cleaners. But then let's say IoT enabled fan, right? Just to take an example. Then I'm not going to build that. I don't have a plan, but it can be a part of very interesting IoT scenario. This is where we work with some of the interesting companies, and we are planning to do even more in subsequent time as we proliferate these kinds of things. But I hope by now in these 4 platforms that I explained, you got a flavor of why I'm saying. So going back to corporates with the experience, with the muscles power, with the global expansion that has already happened, we are building a huge platforms for IoT, for certain voice assistant, for other things. And for startups, their solutions need to be fit. Now, for them to reach to a global community, it's extremely difficult. But let's just assume that if there is an IoT-enabled fan, and that has become partner by working with us, and if I find that that's working well, it will be into our portal, and they'll be promoted. And if 10 other countries need that similar situations, then they may buy directly from them, and the solution is already built. So the magnifying effect that a corporate can give to a startup is stupendous, right? There is entry barrier. There is a lot of time that goes, and that patience is very, very vital, because there is a quality level, there is stability. People would love to see, if the startups could sustain that, could do other experiments, what's their roadmap for future. But once that thing clicks, and I gave many examples where it has clicked, but they took time. It may take 9 months, 1 year to get seriously engaged, to understand each other. But once it happens, then it happens quite meaningfully. And that brand, indirectly, not just within Samsung, but many of them, once they know that they're working with X, Y, Z, who has this kind of product, then their valuations, their market reach to others, it all grows up very, very significantly. So it is an overall valuation booster for the startups even. So I will pause here. I will not take any question, but just for you to get that synthesis in the mind, what I just said with different platforms examples, and why startups should be coming, and why corporates also need startup. It's not one way, because it's a win-win at the end that has to happen to be able to do that. So with that note, I will move to my 7th slide, which is a little bit more now. I'm saying there are some platforms that are much heavier, and maybe startups have to find opportunities, whereas some are much more open and much more forward looking. For example, if I see 5G V2X, the vehicle to everything, the map companies, in India, we have opened up this map for the private. And if you want to have a high definition map update, it's not going to be from us, right? I mean, it's going to be from another company, whether Google Maps people use, but there are room for other players. And in India, there are players who have built specific indoor, outdoor map positioning kind of things. IoT, the connected traffic light, there are a lot of, COPS related services that have been built. And the traffic light being a kind of in the middle of backhaul of the 5G, but reaching to the home can play a very big role. And so there are a lot of interesting solutions around this driving detections, parking, the policing into that area. I also give an example on the left side where we have been trying it out, and it's in the future it will come as a compulsory thing. For example, we have built some trucks, Samsung. I mean, the idea is the display at the back. So if it's a big vehicle that's in the middle, the red vehicle, and it's blocking the view of the blue car for the things in the front, and if it's blocking that, then it becomes the big vehicle's responsibility to display that what's in the front. This is not yet there, but it will become. I think it's 5, 7, 10 years time. It'll become like a good citizens or good car, good vehicle taxonomy that you have to display it. And so that's an area I think a lot of people have started working, and we have demonstrated that recently by showcasing. I mean, V2X is a big ticket item, so my topic here is not to give you all kinds of solutions, but to be able to tell that where people are playing very strong roles. In this whole autonomous vehicle, there are segments that the startups are doing very good job, and be part of that bigger equations, because if it's a very stable thing, then you need to plug in. But if it's emerging and startups are also joining in the beginning, entrepreneurs are joining, then they could take a much bigger role for them in the whole journey, as long as they can afford and get funded. So that's an example in this V2X system level that I showed. One more interesting, the next slide that I will show. This is a point solutions, but very interesting point solutions. Again, from startup standpoint, where corporates have lesser role, but the startup side of the story. So for example, the Australia, there is this company by name Kookaburra, and the bats were already there, the smart bat, but the cricket ball is now kind of almost closer to certifications, that these have the sensors inside your gyroscope and magnetometer. And, these are going to be connected to cloud, and AI algorithms would be running there. And you could see that the spin, the speed, everything. And whether it is a novice player or it is a, seasoned player, depending on that, but both would be benefited to see, how the opponent is playing, or if I'm a novice, I should be able to see from an expert player how that ball should have been played, right? So these are kind of solutions that are coming in the agriculture sector, in the farming sector, in underwater, in cricket, like lots of interesting solutions that are emerging from startups. So I think coming to the point that the innovation, the agility, since it is high, lot of innovative solutions corporates are also doing, but they are quite seasoned and they'll take the time, and there might be some pockets inside corporate that they will be able to innovate. Like I have an advanced technology lab that's specifically focusing on intrapreneurship and how we can build solutions, but you cannot have the full organizations operate that way. Whereas the startups are very focused and can bring that innovations with agility. So this is a great example of that type which can be there. So I have 2 more slides, and then we can have some discussions. I'll conclude before that, but let's continue in the next slide. So this is something that we built a product, and this is again how the product envisioning could happen. And even here I worked with a startup, not in India, but that was an early on. This was a time, our other thing I wanted to bring, and we launched it, as you can see, R.S. Sharma and UIDAI, COE, CEO. And this is in the Vidhan Sauda that we could launch in Karnataka and the health department. This is the tab that I designed and built, which is about and time that we were seeing the Aadhaar enrollment is happening very solidly in India. That was a time like 450 million people were already registered, and we were coming to very soon to 600 million. This is a time I realized that now people would need service. And when I talked to Mr. Nandan Nilekani and I had a meeting, he did already register the iris, face, and fingerprint. But people are using mostly fingerprint. And in Samsung, we did some experiment here and there with iris, but we didn't have any commercial product. So that was the time I felt that it's a beautiful opportunity that iris has not been done globally, even by Samsung. And, we have done some experiments, so we understand. At the same time, this enrollment would finish and then people would go for service. In the enrollment, you can go to a center and get it scanned, right? So you can have an PC and you can attach. But when it's talking about service, then you need a small device and it's any place you should be able to provide. So that is where I proposed and we designed together and with few startups, but lots of our solutions too, to be able to make this an iris scanned tablet. And I must say that this has been fabulous success in the country. And even during this pandemic time, the product was running out of its lifetime, but government requested to prolong it and continue the service because the DBT, the direct benefit transfer that happens, is through that. So I think I'm just showing an example. I'm proud of this product because we spent time, but it's also to highlight the marriage between a technology and a need and a right timing that plays a role, and a corporate and few startups and people like around, who wanted to take. So what I realized also that time, that instead of we trying to build this all solutions, because this can be used in direct benefit transfer from exam centers in any place, right? Identity. So we defined an India Identity Sdk, and we have worked with 100 plus startups in this product who adopted this to deploy that solutions. Interesting thing is even street hawkers, where they stand. One company, one early startups, they tried to find that out and could find the locations of the hawkers, the street hawkers. And then exam centers and healthcare, as you can see. So it has been quite this. But the main point is, it's not about a corporate trying to build that last mile solutions for multiple things. That's not for us. We have built the product, there is a Knox, there is security, that's platform. It's a secure solution that goes, but definitely then you need, other people need to build, and that's for them to grow, that's for them to take the space and be successful, and we can be party to that. So it's a great example that we took. We have done also certain other things in the Tizen platform context and things, but today I think you have got the hang of it. What I wanted to highlight through this example, how corporate and startups could also work together to co-own a product or to co-build a product together with the skills that they have. So with that, I come to the last slides that I have is on social enterprise, because this is again my model. So I just wanted to present on 4D model for social enterprise, because we have also found in a way, and today I've not taken examples. If you have time, you can always discuss, but recently we were recognized by NASSCOM for social impact of the solutions, and we have done a eye care product, and that's, I think, in 3 clinical chain, eye centers chain in India are deploying our solutions, but that's built here. We have been party, we have the patents, and to take it whereby you can detect early on if somebody is, I will go, there is a chance of going blind, and you detect early, because if you can detect early in low, medium income countries, we have seen that you can then prevent. So the solutions is, if you can detect, if you can prevent, then why not that? And I think it will have a very good, again, similar impact on that. So I'm also quite passionate about some of these technology that we build. Can we take it into the social enterprise? And while doing that, our PhD degree always prompts us to make some frameworks or thought process. That's where I realized that what works and what doesn't work. And if some of you are into this socially motivated enterprise and you're building, I realized that actually it's quite difficult space. On one hand, people think that the enterprises or these business value ones are one, but here it's much more challenging by a couple of solutions that we have built. The depth of knowledge that you require is way higher, because you are trying to solve something. Unless you are in the Jugaad innovations game, then that's different. But we are Samsung, and I'm not talking that part to somehow manage a solution. That there is a good time for that. But I'm talking if you are sustained solutions that you are building, the knowledge depth that you require to build an eye care solutions with the AI and this would be higher than an emoji. You want to make an SMS and you want to put some few emojis. It can sell well. I'm not undermining that, but I'm saying the depth, knowledge depth that is required is very, very big. People have to have the empathy, because that's a dimension. If you if you don't care for that problem, business is a different thing. There you get money, but here you have another dimension. So you look into that. And persuasions is also very, very important, because the social enterprise if you remember my first slide where I mentioned about it's less people, not all the time. So whoever you go for funding and other things, you may have challenge because they don't see the volume that is there, right? So that is a challenge that we have. And and the last part of it, so therefore, how do you magnify this, since it is available only in less places and less people are using? So you have to go much global. This product quality has to be even higher than the others, because you cannot only do in the local market, you have to go to the other market. So ability to magnify in market is also very, very high. So therefore, I just thought I'll close with this. This is something that it took me time to understand it and to present it into this 4D model. But if some of you are socially motivated, I'd love to even talk. But more than that, these are challenging spaces, and it requires much higher persuasion ability to be successful in this space than the others. So with that, I will pause it. It has been good 45 minutes. What I summed it, to sum it up, there are platforms that are from the bigger companies. You could plug in with your solutions in the platform as the last mile services. But then there are core solutions. If it is an iris scanning and you have an algorithm, definitely that could be licensed also to companies like ours. So it's not just the service or the last mile part, but it can be also part of the core services. We are very clear as make versus buy. Therefore, what is core? Whenever I engage with some startups, definitely first thing I figure it out. What's their patent? What's their offering? How is it packaged? And is it a complementary things to us or to any corporates for that matter? So that it's a good partnership. Without that, it can be a little bit cluttered, and then you don't know whose solution is what. It's an overlapping space, even though they have good solutions, but they might be a competitor in some form. In that case, the partnerships is difficult to happen. So that understanding of make versus buy and partnership versus this is very, very vital to define. And the startups, as they join, they get a very huge boost. They get mentorships of different kind because the experts that are available inside a corporate is significant. So you have like 4,000, 5,000 people that we have. Even if you have a chip issue or an RF issue or multidisciplinary, there is always that kind of experts that are available. That availability for them to go somewhere and get that is either going to be expensive or maybe they can't find or get their time or attention. Therefore, it's very vital from that angle. And then finally, go to market, the valuations that goes up, the brand that is there is definitely there. But the essence is the right partnerships. That cut has to be very win-win in some sense to go forward. With that, I will pause here and I'm happy to take any questions. Ghana, if you can help me with the questions.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dr. Alok. I think you gave us a very good overview of all the technologies that Samsung is looking at today and also for the future. And I'm sure the students will get the idea on the area in which that they can focus on. Now, Professor Devdeep, like one quick question. Are there any questions sent over the web that anything along with registration that we need to look at them? Some of those or?
Aditya, do you have anything on that?
Oh, not through the registration form.
Yeah, not through that. I think then we can take from
then I'll ask the questions from the chat panel, whatever asked, and I also have some more questions that myself, which may be useful for the students. So one thing is that when, let's say the student has some idea when he's graduating and he has already built some prototype, what is the right time to approach Samsung for the mentorship or getting enrolled into the Samsung Ventures? Like, what is the level of maturity for the idea that or level of prototyping that you are expecting to show interest?
So I will take it generally, not just Samsung, because I think even though I'm presenting, but I think, there are corporates at different levels they look into. So there are some of the companies that have an accelerator and they are running cohorts, just to take some names like Target has, the NetApps has, and some of this hardware side also people are having. Microsoft has been having it quite some time. So, I mean, it's an ecosystem and everybody has it. We do it in the virtual way, not a physical way. Some people also give the physical facility or that running of things. But what I realized is just for Samsung that India government has given lots of funding for these accelerators. And in the country, there are a good number of accelerators that are available already. So whether you avail one of those or the corporate ones, doesn't matter. So that, I think, once everybody looks for two things. I mean, at least one thing has to be right. Either the product is working with accuracy and the level or the uniqueness. I mean, it's hard to say which one, but it can be all of them. But even if some of them, something unique, then it draws attention. See, if you are early, more early you are, more you have to have something to draw somebody's attention. Let me put it that first. Now, how do you find that is another question. But even if you find to draw attention, you get my 20 minutes. But what do you do? How do you draw the attention? You say, I'm thinking about this. So I will say, please continue thinking and come back when you have implemented, right? I'm just putting it very bluntly, right? So that's not a time. So basically then, have you prototyped? Okay. Have you tried few use cases? Who gave you the use cases? And is it like you build the technology first or you have talked to some friends? Doesn't have to have a relationship, but is it a real problem or is it a technology first and application problem? I think many of the seasoned CTOs or MDs or others, they understand very quickly that what's a tech first and some applications versus a real problem that is being solved. Now, I don't mean to say that tech first is any bad, but then are you unique? Have you solved a diagnosis of certain cancers in a non-invasive way? Fine, then that's a different game. So either a strong tech solutions unique or a practical problem and you have a reasonable solution. One of the two, and it can be somewhere in between, but these are two threads that is there. Then I think other angle, so this is the solution angle. Then people would ask for some accuracy, some results. What do you have? And if you have it, then that's great. You are building, then come back. The other thing that people would ask for is, have you tried with one customer? Have somebody paid you a rupee? Now that may be difficult for students, but I'm just saying, since you asked the question, because getting even a one single rupee from somebody's pocket is difficult. Believe me, it may be easier to get $1,000 at some point than to get a rupee out of somebody's pocket, because it's not that money value. It is about telling that I like it and I'm ready to take this solution. That's the point. That is the indication. That's the litmus test. So if you have tried and nobody is doing and they are asking you to do prototype, it is an honest mind would tell that I'm not there, right? But some people would like to believe and they will keep talking. So it is nice to build relationship. So I know I'm expanding on your question, but the point I'm wanting to highlight is have a great solutions, test it with one serious partner, whoever it is, whether they take it or not, but in some cases it works. That is a time companies would be very much interested to know and do it. Anything less, you can take a mentorship. There might be a lot of known friends, they might do this spending their time, but it's not right time for a professional engagement.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. The one question from Professor Vinay is, apart from preparing students with technical skills, what can an academic department can do to prepare students to take the startup as a career option?
I think some level of, like, in many institutes, you have these communication skills or some soft skills, negotiations. I mean, some of these, and today I think a lot of online courses are available. Something of these entrepreneurships as a basic things, like what I'm talking, some of these may not be as a critical point, but what does it mean? What does the risk mean? And people to absorb that, and some success stories, whether it is an online course or if it is an offered by the institute, another department, management, or the entrepreneurship cells, maybe a credit there. And if we allow them to have that and they get that, that's a minimum. Or if you want to have like a seminar on some thoughts, whatever they have tried doesn't matter, but opening it up like a pitching or presenting in front of it, whatever solutions, and other give some comments, ask questions. This kind of things would be helpful, in my opinion.
Thank you. So another question from Professor Hari. If a startup is funded by Samsung Ventures, can it be acquired by another company?
Yes, because in the investments, it is a certain percentage of shares. And it is there, but only thing in some of the companies, if we have invested a lot by either putting money or maybe early on, so even though money is less, but the share percentage is more, then typically these ventures, corporate ventures, they might be in the board or as an observer. Observer means less power, but what's proceedings, and if there is a concern area, you have a way to raise. You don't have a voting power or a decision-making power, but you are influencer in some way. So it goes up to that, the equity percentage wise. But once somebody does it, in fact, you know, 2 of my invested companies have been acquired recently, and they take permissions and consents and no conflict, and whatever have been agreed upon by the previous clauses are honored or not. All these are getting checked. And the new company might also like to continue the business even though they have taken this company. So it is not a problem. And it's also perfectly fine for corporates. If we have a big things, what typically has is a first right of refusal. So if any of the present investors would like to take it, if they have an interest before another person who is not yet invested, that there might be a preference at times. I'm not talking Samsung, I'm just saying in general. But once nobody is interested in taking it up, it's perfectly fine for another company to pitch in. If there are some clauses, conflictions, then they will say, okay, let it be acquired, but not by this company, but by somebody else. So that kind of points may come, but yeah, I mean, it's a quite routine process, and nobody can stop an acquisitions if somebody is coming with money and taking it over.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. In the interest of time, I just ask one more question. It's a question by Jogesh Chandra Dash. What is Samsung Research India Bangalore's thought process for industry and academia collaboration for advanced research? Who should take the initiative and how to conduct the communication?
No, we have a very established program, and even though it's not in the startup context, but we have an India Research Network. I recently even published that, and you know, there are many professors that are speaking. So the style that I follow is we invite in a day, let's say 3 professors on a topic from different institutes to hear from them what are their contribution, what's their lab, if it is a new area. And then, you know, we need also an internal champion. So it's not a judgment of who is better professor than, that's not our question. I mean, if you are inviting means they all have credibility in there. Only thing is, whether it is startup or whether it is university, it's an internal agent is very important on both sides. Who is a strong champion, because otherwise it breaks. It requires that persuasion part that I talked about. So it requires that continuous engagement. So that is one part. And the second is, how is this solution together make sense? And currently, I think even in IISc, we have 2 or 3 projects that are running. Professor Ganpati is working, and a couple of others in different times they have worked, and even other departments, and some are in the vision side, some IoT side with IITM, IIT Kharagpur. So we have a quite extensive, and I want to grow that even more subsequently, and we have planned. So coming back, who initiates? There is nothing like that. If we have a problem and we need to chase, then we'll go first. But if professors come with something that they have built, and it looks like they have studied that this can go into a speaker or go into this, would you like to consider, then it's perfectly fine. So who initiates? Like in a telephone call, whoever has the need, they start, but after that, the dialogue is mutual, right?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Alok. I think you have kind of touched upon all the points relevant for the students and the professors to look at how to collaborate and what is the area in which you can collaborate. And of course, you also gave a green field where you can people come up with the new ideas and new products, and always they can approach any of the corporates. So thanks a lot for taking your time off in giving your point to the students. And now I hand over to Professor Devti.
Yeah, so thanks very much. So I think I'll present the formal vote of thanks before we conclude the session. So I mean, first of all, we thank Dr. Aloknath for spending time with us, and there was a lot to learn, and for sharing all these valuable thoughts and information, and I mean how the corporates and startups can mutually benefit from their interactions. So I could like follow the entire presentation and learn about many things. So I hope the participants have also have many takeaway points. And I would like to thank Professor KJ Vinoy for the vision of this ECE75 webinar series, and I'm sure that we'll be having more such webinars frequently enough for commemorating the 75th anniversary of our ECE department. And many thanks to Dr. Gana for spending the time and for moderating the entire session, and especially bringing in the support from IEEE ComSoc. And of course, we'd like to extend our thanks to Aditya, Dr. Anandi, and Professor Srinivas for the support from IEEE IISc student branch, and especially Aditya for helping us out a lot with the flyers and publicity of this event. And last but not the least, thank you all the participants for the different interactive questions and for listening the entire talk patiently. So yeah, with that, I think I conclude my vote of thanks. So over to you, Dr. Gana. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be participating with IISc, and also from IEEE ComSoc. We have that relationship, so great to have it together. Wish you all the best for continuing this series in the 75th year. Any other way you can help, definitely. And let's build further either on the startup sides or on the university collaborations. It will be a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we can conclude maybe. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Control back.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Can you give the control back?
Yeah.
Thank you.